Hello, everyone, and welcome this afternoon to our October meeting of the Greater St. Louis chapter of CSI. We're going to be talking a little bit about Forest Park, which is located directly to our rear across the highway there, and about water management, and in particular the River de Pere, which was a major project in the history of the city of St. Louis. I'm George Everding. I'm the chair for this year's program committee, and one of my roles this year is to set the stage by talking about history. So let's start off by taking a look at our place in the world. The yellow star in the center obviously is St. Louis, and we're right in the middle of either the third or the fourth or the fifth largest watershed in the world, the Missouri, Ohio, Mississippi watershed. This is 1.5 million square miles of drainage area. It goes from the Alleghenies to the Rockies. It goes from the border of Canada all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. It drains about 40% of the continental U.S., and if you include all of North America, it's about 1/8 of that area. So we'll keep in mind 3 points about the Mississippi River and its watershed. For most of human habitation, the Mississippi River system was the main means of transportation. Second, the river system was our main water supply, and still is today. And that's great if you want to make beer. You have a virtually unlimited source of water. But then you come to the third point, when it's time to get rid of the beer, you also use the river system to get rid of waste. Let's take a look at the human settlement in the valley. We like to focus at 1763, the year that St. Louis was founded, but I think we need to recognize that for tens of thousands of years, people have lived here. It's a bit unclear how long it took people from the Clovis migration over the land bridge from Asia to make it to the Mississippi Valley. But recent archaeology has made it pretty clear that about 1,000 years ago, we had a thriving city at a population of 20,000. In the Mississippian culture at Cahokia across the river, that was bigger than contemporary cities of London and Paris and Rome. The European exploration of the valley took place in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. You had explorers from Spain like de Soto coming up from the south, and you had the French explorers Marquette and Joliet coming downriver from the north. 1763, of course, is the founding of St. Louis with the Kaleena and Choteau, who came up from French New Orleans. And then in the early 1800s, we had the purchase of a great swath of land by President Thomas Jefferson and, of course, sending Lewis and Clark from St. Louis to the west. So this is St. Louis in about 1800. In the earliest days, the way that we dealt with our water and our waste was directly to and from the Mississippi River. And there is also a source of water, Mill Creek, that you can see at the bottom of this map. And in about 1770 or so, a dam was put in, and Choteau's Pond was formed. You can kind of see this on the left-hand side of the map. And this was to help to serve a grist mill that was put in. So this is an overlay of Mill Creek and Choteau's Pond over a current map. And in the earliest days, this was a very lovely place. You could take your best guy or your best gal out and look at the grist mill at work. It was tree-lined, the water was very clear, and all in all, it was a very pleasant place. And best of all, it was only a short walk from the heart of the city. Our worst year in St. Louis was 1849. It was the worst year because we had our big fire. Like London, like Rome, like Chicago, St. Louis had a great fire. And it was great in the sense of the amount of property that was lost. But the loss of life, as great fires go, was relatively minimal. Somewhere between 3 and 30 people died.
A month or two after that, St. Louis lost 10% of its population to the cholera epidemic. Where did cholera come from? It came from the Mill Creek and from Sherwood's Pond, because in the intervening time from when this was a nice, idyllic park-like setting, industry developed, right? And people started to move in, and we expanded a bit westward. And a lot of the waste from that movement and from those people went in and essentially destroyed the viability of Sherwood's Pond. So as a result of 1849, in the next half a decade, we started to see the first water treatment in St. Louis. Mark Twain had a great story about when he was on the river in the 1840s, that the water in St. Louis was too thick to drink and too thin to plow. So that was all kind of cleaned up. The sewer improvement was a major deal. And then as we expanded to the west. The other thing that the water system did is you were able to fight fires directly from your block, or later on directly from the building you were in. So that was all kind of a big deal. But the loss of the recreation area was keenly felt. And so in the 1860s, 1875, we start to see talk about a new park, a park further west. A park that was so far west, it was past Kings Highway. Picture that. It was at the extent of the city. There was some bickering back and forth. Politics was involved, but in the 1874 or so, that site over there in Forest Park was chosen. Park opened in 1876, and the only way to get there, unless you wanted to walk for several hours from downtown, right, was to take your carriage or to ride the train. So at the beginning of Forest Park, it very much was an upper class sort of a thing. And you could take your best girl or your best gal out for a date, just like this guy out for a date, just like you could back in the early days. And so mostly rural setting. Over the next couple decades, we developed further west. The nice, pristine spring that used to run through Forest Park, that was a very nice sort of rural setting, runs into the same thing that Mill Creek did. It gets polluted. It catches stormwater from increasing development, as you can see to the north there. More hard surface. It periodically flooded. So as we further developed the park, as we got trolley and streetcar access, as we moved west, it became a more intensely used park. And then just before 1900, the World's Fair site, we're going to have the World's Fair in 1904, the site was chosen as to be in Forest Park. So, a couple of influences that were going on when you're designing parks back in that era. Frederick Law Olmsted, who designed Central Park, sort of the father of American landscape architecture. And this is his sort of image. It's an urban park, but it has a very rural feel to it. It's picturesque. It allows for pathways like this, and it also allows for some more open grassland, and so forth. In the early 1880s, the city beautiful movement starts to take place. Daniel Burnham, the architect of the Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1892, is the guiding light to that. The idea is a Beaux-Arts or neoclassical sort of a feel to it. It's much more formal than what you see in the above photograph. So here's what if we were talking about what we're doing with the park in 1900, here's what we would face. Which of those two ideals are we going to choose, right? Most importantly, how do we invite millions of people to what is becoming our backyard, or a backyard barbecue, except this barbecue has a lot of stuff going on and it's going to last for a full year. And then when the barbecue's over, how do we turn that park into our backyard? And maybe most importantly, what do we do with that stinking creek? So, that's the history. I'm going to invite our speaker to come in and take it from here.
Quite flattering to be here. I've been involved on the fringes with CSI for a year and a half or so now through friends and as the topic interests me. I'm a civil engineer by training, and George especially was helpful in setting up this presentation and getting the credits needed so that you all get official credit for being here, for continuing education. And he also came up with the title to this talk, which really makes me smile because I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and I went, well, it says exactly what it is. It's river repair and water management in Forest Park. Did everyone take a moment to notice where we're located in the city? George talked about it a bit, but if you look directly behind us, that's Forest Park. And I'll also note that he asked where the river repair is located in relationship to us, and yes, his answer and our group's answer is accurate, but I'd also like to add that we're surrounded by the river repair. The river repair is to our north right now, it's to our east right now, and it's also to the south right now. It's doing a big old scoop right around where this bar is located. So when I was trying to come up with other titles to go, I mean, it's fine. The title's fine. It's fine. Okay, so
wow,
a shitty river runs through it. That is one of my just for fun titles. Play on that movie. 21st century infrastructure and 21st century challenges. 20th century infrastructure and 21st century challenges. That's right, brown trout, that was good. Honoring our past, imagining our future. I'm glad George did the history part because I tend to be much more of a visionary. I think it's important to look at history and why we are where we are, and to use that for knowledge in the future. But in my mind, we're all here to make improvements for ourselves and make the world a better place. So, great, what happened, happened. What do we do with that knowledge? And then my favorite, open channel flow and why my P funnel is the best. That's a little, this is a P funnel. This one's clean, I just bought the new one. So this is to help women or people that don't have penises to pee out in the woods. And in the last year during the pandemic, I discovered a superior model of the P funnel, which is an open channel. So we'll get back to that later. Okay, so we're all here by this organization called Construction Specifications Institute. My first exposure to specifications and construction specifications was at my second postgraduate job. I was 4 or 5 months in on the job, and my very first day at that company, I was handed a giant binder, 900-page book saying, these are the specifications for this project at this Air Force Base. We would like you to take, youngster, these specifications and recreate them to this Air Force Base. And having not a lick of knowledge of specifications or concrete pressure or chain link fences or compaction rates of soils, I just had to go through line by line and go, well, I don't know what this means, and then Google it. I don't know what this means, and then Google it. And so my very first job in 2017, or second job, I got to do a lot with specifications. My dad taught me to use a $5 word whenever possible, but the more I go on in my life, the more I realize that really the $1 words are way better. So I'm going to try and take our language, our collective design engineering language, and I'm going to lower it to be more accessible, because at home I've got my parents are on the line, I invited some other people. I invited a heck of a lot of non-engineers and a heck of a lot of non-architects, and I want them to enjoy this too. So some of the things I thought of are boundaries, parameters, edge protections. To me, specifications are, okay, we've got a problem, we define the problem, we're going to design a solution to the problem, but then we also have to list very specific things that aren't going to show in any other document about exactly what the problem is, how to write about it, how to talk about it, and how very specifically we're going to implement those construction drawings with those specifications. So they're actually very important. Okay, so in typical specifications, they have all the industry is trying to coalesce over a standard for how we all talk about these things. And they have sections with numbers, and it's designed such that it can be expanded and include other topics. And it starts with the section 00, the general project requirements. So in this case, I am listing this as if our project today is this presentation to this group. So our presentation is about the river repair to CSI. We're going to be here an hour plus or minus. So I'm going to try and shrink it up and talk fast because I know you'll have jobs to get back to. As I am starting out in my own, coming up with drafting standards and how to do everything from invoicing customers to designing engineering, drafting standards to what my layers look like and why, I am questioning everything. And it's fun because I get to be the one that decides it. So one note I have here is that we used to use all caps letters in engineering documents for 100 years, and the reason why is it's easier to handwrite them, easier to handwrite capital letters than it is lowercase letters. That's the only reason. And yet now, 100 years later, I've never hand-drawn engineering plans. I draw sketches all the time, but the real deal, that's done on the computer. So I smile how often all caps are used because sentence case is far easier to read, and yet that's a standard we continue in our industry that seems silly to me. Okay, so the next here, this is the AIA. What's on your cheat sheet for the acronym? I don't remember what AIA stands for.
American Institute of Architects.
Thank you. AIA is American Institute of Architects. I'm not an architect. And today we posted, or I was asked to do a health, safety, and welfare credit, which I've never done before. I've done a lot of technical presentations, but the moment George said he was submitting it for this credit, well, that's really cool. That actually really fits. I'm impressed. Yeah, let's do that. I'd like to compliment AIA for their really good credit standards. In civil engineering, we have the same professional credits required, but our standards are embarrassingly loose as compared to architects. Our standards say, for the most part, 15 hours every year, 30 hours every other year, and one of those credits should be about ethics. Nationwide, that's roughly our standards. But for architects, they have to have standards in these different categories that I think is really important. So I looked these up for the first time when they asked me to do this presentation, health, safety, and welfare. And what's really great is this was just a whole jumbled bunch of text here that I hid out all the redundant words. And that's why I think they're well written, is because you can hide all the redundant words and you get exactly what it's saying. Health, physical, emotional, social well-being, safety, protection, welfare, equitable access, elevate the human experience, encourage social interaction, and benefit the environment. We're going to be talking a bit about health and safety as it relates to the river repair, to our shitty river, to stormwater, to how we interact with our families and communities and coworkers. And I just want to take a moment to say that safety is pretty important to me right now. I've had a rough couple months, and the top level version is that starting at the end of July, we had the 3 historic storm events in back-to-back days. That's been fine professionally because my phone keeps ringing with sad stories about flooded basements. So that's the first thing. And then right at the same time, I got COVID for the first time. And then after that, I got shingles. and also work's picking up. And so all the things are just backing up and going boom, 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 boom. It's time to get busy. So I say that to you because I really care about my safety right now, and I also care about the safety of people in this room. So if you have any needs that aren't here, that's fine. Bathroom's over there on the right. Food's out there. Excuse yourself whenever you need. If you fall asleep in here, I'll feel a little sad, or if you snore. But otherwise, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. I put on our little cheat sheet. I started a little definition thing, and the definitions I was trying to put were the things that we wouldn't typically have good definitions for. And under the definition, the only one I got to was trauma. And I think that's really important because we as a people have experienced a collective trauma, and that's the pandemic. I listed chronic, acute, and complex, and you can imagine trauma comes in a lot of various forms, from a car accident where you hurt your neck and you're afraid to go through that one intersection again, to the loss of a job, to a medical issue, to an abusive relationship, to the pandemic. And I think what's really important about listing that as a real thing is that that's something we've all experienced. We all have an exposure to that. And in fact, I remember when I got COVID, after the fact, I wished I had put an out of office that said, I got COVID. Everyone was super gracious on the tail end, but it would have been even easier on the front end if I just said, yay, I finally got the thing that we've all been experiencing. Section 02 are existing conditions. So that's a little bit about why we're here. Again, we're going back to the presentation. Why are we here? I want you, this is where we're going to pull up this piece of paper for a second. On the front, there is this pretty wheel. It's a wheel of feelings. So you can look at that and learn some words. There's discussion questions. And then on the back is the fun part, which is a list of things about me, where when your mind wanders in the next 45 minutes, you can fill this out. And I'm inviting you to make up stories about me. You can make up, think about how I got here today. And do I live in a house or apartment? And what are my hopes and dreams? How many jobs have I had? You're just gonna make it all up. And if you know me personally, you can fill in whatever you'd like on that. Oh, I already started that. That's me. Let's get back to it. Okay, so there's other categories on there that are based on discrimination, and what I want you to think about is you're going to make up all these stories about me, and some of them are going to be true, and some of them won't be. So as you look at this sheet, make up stories about me. I mean, don't tell me about it. I want to know. But as you work through this, think about which ones are factual and which ones are not, and just take note of that. That's all. All right, so now we're going to look at the map on the right. Throughout these, I have a whole bunch of pictures where there's just going to be a dot in the center. So that dot's just trying to show roughly where we're located in space and time. This is the St. Louis metro region. So who in this room lives, raise your hand if you live in Missouri. Okay, that's most of the room. And who lives in Illinois? Okay, and those online, if you could put in the chat where you're from, just let me know. And then the other thing I want to know is what our general profession is. Who's an architect? Okay, it looks like about a third of the room. Who's a specifier? Okay, got 10% per staffs. Who's retired? No one in here?
He's out there drinking.
He's out there drinking. You know, all this time and effort I put in, you can't even watch my dang presentation. I'm just kidding, George is great. And then, what other professions? Oh, who's an engineer? I got a lot of engineers here. Yeah. Those are my people. Yeah. And then, similarly, online, if you just want to throw in the chat what you do or what brings you joy, just so we can have an idea. And Hank, if we got any quorum of people, you can let me know what you got. You good?
I think George is watching the chat, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
He is doing something over there.
Well, his smile say otherwise. That's all right. Just want to know I'm thinking of you too. Okay, and then we already went through who's a member and out of CSI, and so I just want to thank again Pella Windows for sponsoring lunch today. That was awesome. Okay, existing conditions continued. Yeah, I'm throwing some heart words in. You'll be fine. I want us all to be safe again. So we're just going to quickly go through some observations of this room, how we're feeling first. I think it's a little warm in here. What do you all think? Yeah? What do you smell in here? Pizza. Heck yeah, pizza. I was going to assume they said pizza. Smells. Yep, we smell pizza. Hear my voice. That's important to me. So if you ever can't hear me or need me to speak up, please let me know. I want you to know that I am going to say shit a lot today. And I had my dad often tell me that women in professional circles shouldn't curse. That's silly. No, women don't curse. And he said it to me enough times that I was probably 19 or 20 years old that women shouldn't curse in the workplace. And I finally said, well, shouldn't that apply to men too? Like, come on, if we shouldn't curse in the workplace, it should be men and women. And on that subject, I also had I had a presentation that I gave where I was sitting next to this woman and I hadn't prepared enough. And I leaned in and I was just trying to get some nerves out and I said, I'll give you $10 if I make it through this presentation without saying shit water instead of wastewater. So I want to say that just because I trust you to be smart and intelligent people that can know that I'm going to use shit because it's a funny word. Nothing to do with my engineering.
I just want you to know you're reaching as far as Washington State and Colorado.
Oh, how fun. Hi, Washington and Colorado. That's great. Thanks. Appreciate that. I mentioned before, but I want this to be accessible to everybody in the room. So if you have a question, if it's appropriate to ask now, great. If it makes sense to wait till later, I do get distracted earlier, so just enough of like a hand raise is enough that I'll mentally get you in the queue. And then finally, our wants and feelings. So wants, I was thinking through, why are we here today? And I need you to give me some options. Shit. What else?
I want to know how they buried the river.
You want to know how they buried the river? Well,
What they're doing about it.
that's cool. And what they're doing about it. Great. I wanted a free lunch, and I really like pizza. So I'm here. Anybody have a burning need to get their AIA credit? Because that seems like a valid reason to be here. That matters.
More than enough.
More than enough. Great. Okay. This is another little bit more about me that I think is sweet because I know my parents are watching, and I'm just going to quickly go through these. On the left is my dad and I building a leach field in Colorado Springs. So I found this picture probably 4 years ago, refound it, and I'm guessing I was 13 or so at the time. And I just think it's so brilliant that 13-year-old me wanted to be an astronaut. I definitely didn't think I'd be a civil engineer. And so how fun that 13 years ago, I was creating the wastewater field in our own house. And then on the pictures of my mom, I think are really special because my mom taught me to make everything a fun game, and that if you're bored, that's your own fault. And so the bottom right is where my mom dressed up as Santa Claus at my college graduation party when I was 28 years old, and it was a long time coming. So she added a whole lot of pizzazz. I was just a December graduate, and she had lots of people at my party sit on her Santa's lap. And then in the middle one at the top is my mom and I riding a ride at the Kennedy Space Center that I suspect was pretty scary because she's got a little apprehension on her face. However, she's willing to try new things and knows that I'm willing to try new things. And I think she trusts me to help her try the fun new things together. So the note I left was that my mom taught me that hair grows back. That's so funny for those of you that worked at MSD where I shaved my head a month after I started. My mom is an amazing project manager and chef, and she, I think, could have been a civil engineer. And my dad is an electrical engineer, and he taught me that every problem has a solution, and that really I can do anything. Every problem does have a solution with enough resources, enough time, enough money, enough everything. Our only limitations to our problem solving is those resources. That's a sweet mousetrap car my dad clearly designed, but I do remember building most of it. People have a harder time relating to someone who doesn't look like them. And I reframed that positively to people have an easier time relating to someone who does look like them. I intend to make a whole lot of analogies today between the river to pear and our human bodies, between how we design things and work in community, how we can treat people in our places of employment, but also our families better. So when you're wondering what to think about how does this relate to me, or how does this relate to my communities, or how are we the same? There's something I've been reading a lot lately called an empathy gap, which is that we have an extra hard time putting ourselves in someone else's shoes when we're having a hard time ourselves. This keeps coming up lately as work's picking up because the number of people that are bombarding me with this, that, or the other thing that is minor minutia that don't recognize, y'all, I'm right at the end of the rope, I'm real overwhelmed, is pretty startling, but know me as a happy-go-lucky, has time for everybody kind of person. And as I'm trying to tighten those reins, I'm really, really recognizing, oh, you're used to me that does drop everything to help you. And now that that's changing, it's been an adjustment in a lot of my relationships. So as we're framing things positively, I also want to note that some of the ways I'm trying to get better at being kind to myself is reframing my own stuff positively, from saying things like, I'm not lazy, I'm efficient. I'm not a procrastinator, I thrive well under pressure. I didn't bike here at the last minute, I got here right on time. I'm not sensitive, I'm observant. Okay, now we're getting into the rubric. That was all good stuff, thanks for. Okay, so this is just a sweet map. This is from 1949, map of the sewer district. So these are old permit books from the city of St. Louis. I put MSD's Project Clears label in the bottom left corner. That's just a note to say that a lot of these photos are from MSD Project Clear, and I used to work there. I left in July of 2021, but it's a public sector job, and all these records are accessible. And if you want to know how to do a sunshine request, I'd love to help you learn that. Okay, so again, yellow dots roughly where we are. And what do you all see that's special about this map? What do the blue lines indicate?
Is that Deer Creek that goes into the fair? All right.
Why is there a dead spot around Forest Park and all those blue lines? Yeah, that's where those blue lines get buried. So these blue lines are representing our creeks and streams in the St. Louis area. So if you can see the green square in the center, that's Forest Park, just to our north, and where the water lines stop is where we've buried the rivers underneath Forest Park, and then the blue line that picks up just to our south is where the river to Pear opens back up to a concrete channel.
Doesn't the river to Pear open up somewhere to the north of the park?
Yes.
Or is that one line that I'm looking at?
Well, where the three lines to the north are ending, that's where it turns to piped, and then just to our south is when it opens back up where it daylights. Okay, so this is a different map that's showing, again, where you are at the top of the screen. And this is, imagine you go to the bathroom today, or if you do actually go to the bathroom today, when you flush your toilet, this is the route your little turdies are going to take. So we, as George mentioned, we're hitting the river to Pear just to our east and taking a dive south, and then we're going to go west. And that Pac-Man looking symbol is the symbol I made up to call an interceptor. So an interceptor is like a gate that diverts stormwater from wastewater. And the goal is that all of the wastewater goes to a wastewater treatment plant, and when it rains, it can't accommodate all of that flow, and so then it goes over topset. So I had previously other things there, but I'll explain a little bit more what that wastewater is. At the bottom it says Kaleena wastewater treatment plant. Our region, and I'm throwing some of this out to compare to other sewer districts, we still call them wastewater treatment plants, but nationwide they're pretty regularly not called that and called the water reclamation facility. What I think is also noteworthy is that our waste right here is taking a fast track to the river to Pear. So again, think of that when you go to the bathroom. Water just goes downhill. I don't know if you know that, but we can just go home now. Okay, so pull out your piece of paper and then look on the back where the spreadsheet size. And I'm wondering who can tell me what those lines represent? Who can guess on that?
The highways?
No, good guess. I'll give you a hint that it's got that little dot noting our location. It looks similar to a map George showed in his presentation, the history.
Marketed by that.
Ooh, oh, that's a good help. I'll tell you which way north is up. North is opposite of where the three lines come together is the south. It's like if three lines go up is north.
Is it watershed?
It's watershed. It is a watershed. So the other note is that if you fold the solid lines like a mountain format and the blue line like a valley on your origami, you'll get another hint of where that is. Yeah, that's good.
Pointing to the reclamation facility?
Nope, bigger scale. Good. Oh, folks at home, I forgot to tell you where this presentation is, or the cheat sheet. If you go to my website, which is my last name, Menke.llc, there's a PDF right at the top that you can find and look at this for yourself. Do you see it now? So this, ideally I wanted a whole outline of the United States on the back there, but it wasn't there. So the blue line down the middle of that backside, it roughly represents the Mississippi River. And the two black lines on either side roughly represent the mountain ranges of the Rockies and Appalachian Mountains. So that is to help us learn what a watershed is. Something else my mom is super good at is event planning or party planning. And what I think is fun to relate to this is that as part of being a stormwater engineer, what you have to do is imagine you're a water drop and you fall from the sky, and where does that little water drop, what little journey does it go on, and where does it go before it ends up at the Lee wastewater treatment plant, or the Mississippi River, or Louisiana and the Gulf Coast, or either ocean? How does that water drop get there? And the correlation of party planning is sitting at home and going, okay, well, when your guests show up, what are they going to do first? Are they going to all know each other, or do you need to have name tags? Do you have fun games? Do you have activities? And similarly, in AutoCAD, they even started calling this feature the water drop feature. It's just drop of water from the sky, where does it land? Okay, so here we're zooming in a little bit more to show the same watersheds, where we've got the River to Pear watershed, and then DCK, Deer Creek. URDP, that's Upper River to Pear. And I didn't put the little dot on this one, but we are roughly where the little dotted line and the black line are next to each other. Okay. Tell me what the flow rate is for a pipe. What's the equation? Yeah, area times velocity. Q, which is flow, equals velocity times area. So in these two instances, we have a pipe on our left, where the area is represented by the yellow, And then the area is yellow on both sides. So one is an enclosed channel and one is intended to be an open channel. I shouldn't put the blue line on top, but can't get everything right. The other thing I want to show here is that if that area is similar, if the yellow is roughly similar in these two, then the flow is based on other materials like the slickness of the pipe or the material of that channel that we have. So in the river to pair, we hit all the options. We hit pipes, we hit open channels. There's parts that are kind of naturalized upstream of the river to pair, what we know and love as the river to pair. And how that relates to how we design infrastructure in the future is that the biggest take home is the one on the left, the circle. When you're out of space, there's no more space for the yellow to go. It comes out through our streets and through our sewers, and it floods our basements, and that's all we got. Versus on the right, when the yellow exceeds that bowl, then it overtops it and comes out on the side banks. And we just got to go back to the pea funnel for 1 minute. So the previous versions of pea funnels up until about 2 years ago all seal against you, and so you have to hold your pea so you don't let it out too fast. Whereas this one, you can let it out as fast as you want, and it just overtops the side of the channel. It's pretty neat. Okay, then we're going to do a quick on sewer overflows, aka why St. Louis smells so bad in the summer. So this is I imagine, pretty well established for most of you in this room. So I'm, again, going to go over it quickly. When rainwater falls from the sky, we collect that in one pipe system, and our bathrooms and our laundry and our showers go in another pipe system at first. We used to throw those all in together, as George mentioned, and then we just throw it in the Mississippi River. So our method for managing wastewater used to be get it away and get it away fast. We're starting to recognize that that has a lot of problems with it. So this shows a combined sewer system where the rainwater and the wastewater, the shit water, are both going in the same pipes. When that happens, for the most part, our systems can handle that lots of the time. When it can't handle it, it can't handle it in a really big way that's getting worse with every passing year. So this is kind of an angled view, and I've got a couple more that are just a plan view and then a section view. So clearly this is created by someone else, and I don't know what those words mean, but my best guess is that the orange or red is your wastewater and the blue is the stormwater. So previously, on the left, you can see the solution was put them all in one pipe, one big pipe. Now we're realizing, oh gosh, we should probably separate those two because when it rains a lot. This also shows well the relative size of stormwater pipes versus shitwater pipes, which is stormwater pipes need to be a lot bigger because when it rains a lot more than it takes to flush the toilet. Okay, and then here's where we're going to show those interceptors or those dams. So on the left is the combined sewer, which again means our stormwater and our wastewater goes through the same pipe versus separate sewers where they go into two separate pipes. And in the city of St. Louis, that's all we've got. We've got combined sewers throughout. So when I flush the toilet and when it rains, all of that water goes to the same place where I live. Right on the left, they show a dam here, and that's another name for an interceptor. So a dam or a diversion wall or a gate is just a way to say, okay, shitty water, we want you for the most part to go this way, unless it rains a lot, and then we're all screwed. And then it goes straight to the Mississippi, and that's all right too, because it's the best we got. I started talking about this a little bit while I was at MSD, and it's really important to me because of the pieces of our history that I don't think we fully recognize, the impact on our everything and how that relates to how we treat people that look different from us really matters. So MSD is an organization that's existed or consolidated a bunch of sewer districts in 1960. and basically got the privilege of gaining a whole lot of collective problems that nobody that's alive firsthand contributed towards creating it, or lots of people that are alive. You're either aware that it's an issue, but for instance, I'm not even from here. I didn't do a lick to create these issues. George talked about it too with the industry and how progress came to St. Louis, how we had to take care of cholera, how our health problems were, again, just get that water away. And as a result, I put this picture on the right. It's just a generic palace on a hilltop. And the point of the palace on the hilltop is to show that by and large, worldwide, wealthier people live on the hilltops while poorer people live in the low-lying areas. That's true also in St. Louis for the most part, which is that in our economically underdeveloped parts of town are also under-sewered. And it's not a problem I created, but I do think it's our problem to start solving. So I listed this is over the roughly last 100 years of slavery to Jim Crow to redlining to urban renewal, to deindustrialization, mass incarceration. And that's all to say is that the poorest people in our society have the hardest problems with everything related to our environment, and also that includes our sewers. Ideally, I'd give a whole talk about that and not just one slide, so maybe that'll be the next one that I give. And I first learned this phrase, racialized topography, from a landscape architect who gave a pretty impressive presentation a couple years ago that just instantly made sense in all the ways. So it's important, it's stuff we need to be addressing, and I'm starting to address it privately from a different side of the aisle now. So this is why it should be important to sewer districts, acknowledge our history, create better outcomes. It should be our ethical imperative. I think following this stuff falls exactly in line with MSD's mission right now and should be doing more. Stand firm and be courageous. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Okay. Now we're getting to the meat of the presentation here. So we have this problem, and then the World's Fair in 1908, we had a 1904, thank you. We had this problem where we invited a whole bunch of people to come view our shining, marvelous city, and then right in the middle, we had a shitty river going through it. So at the time of the World's Fair, we put basically a big box around it. We left the river right where it is, put walls on the side, roof on it. I've seen a picture of it, but I couldn't find it again. But that's where we came from, and that's the problem to be solved. I'm not from here. I've only lived here 8 years, and I'm guessing just about everyone in the room has lived here longer than I have. What quick things can you tell me about the river to Pear?
WPA.
Tell me more.
There was a project for them to line it. River to Pear means river of flowers.
Very cool. That's good. What's the WPA?
Work Projects Administration.
Works Projects Administration. Thank you.
The lower part where it's in the county and so forth, all those rocks that are up against it lined, that was a WPA project.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone else?
Nicknamed the river distinct.
River distinct. That's good. This is a video, a quick video, if you can switch on that one.
Well, every Sunday morning, I take the family for a little drive. Something for diversion, just to keep my soul alive. This morning is something special that you really, really like, I know. And the kids scream, Daddy, Daddy, please, won't you tell us where we're gonna go? We're all headed down to the river to Pear. You can tell when we're getting close by the perfume in the air. If you decide to stay, it'll take your breath away. Woo! We're all headed down
All right, so I pulled up a couple reviews for the river to pair, and they just really made me crack up. I didn't go to River to Pew Park. Too many potholes, not much to do here, and the river stinks. The grass is kind of tall, still flooded. So yeah, we all know that the river to pair often smells, and what can we do about that? So this is a picture to show us that these problems of urban flooding have always existed, and they're getting worse. So this is Developer Avenue, and this is in August of 1915. So this is before we built this impressive drainage channel. Biggest take home I look at this drainage project is that we all do the best information with what we have at the time. So at the turn of the century, we had a shitty, stinky river that caused disease. What do we do with that? At the time, we thought the best solution was to bury it so we didn't have to look at it, so we don't have to smell it, so that our waste problems would be hidden and buried and gone. And, you know, good on them. It won a national award. This is the National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark, which is just, probably could see it. There weren't a hill right over there, half a mile that way. And we got this award in 1998. It's called the River to Pair Sewerage and Drainage Works Project. This is my absolute favorite picture. This is the opening of the River to Pair, which I'll talk about a little bit, but these twin tubes were called the twin tubes because they were ginormous and so big that they threw a party in them after they opened, or after the construction project was finished, but before the sewer project was put online. I've been dreaming of throwing another project there soon. Rain's gotten in the way a couple times, but it'll probably happen someday. Bring your flashes. So we decided to undertake this project to bury the river, and this is an article from 1929 with a construction project progress. So what's really cool about this map is this is actually very close to where we're at. So Clayton Road, Oakland Avenue. So I believe, let's see, north, we're to the top left corner of this map. And there it shows the two tubes side by side to carry our waste to the Mississippi River. And again, this just shows the massive, massive scale of this. So the Jefferson Memorial is on the left here. This is 1929 again, and says looking southwest at inverts at front of Jefferson Memorial. I especially like this house here on the just perched going, or where do I?
Crane.
Oh, it's a crane. Thank you. Hey, there we go, learning something. It's a crane. Here is the map of the total spot through Forest Park. In the middle, what you can see is they show the typical section for the different parts of the channel. So through Forest Park, it's completely buried. If you can picture that river picture where we had the blue lines that then stopped for a bit. Once we exit Forest Park and about a mile diagonally that way is where the channel opens back up, and you can see this V-shaped shape here. Also on that V-shaped trapezoid where the pipes open up to an open channel, you can see there's a little tiny little blip of a loop underneath. And what that is that's where the wastewater goes under normal conditions. We call them in the engineering field dry weather and wet weather conditions. So when it's not raining, like right now, and we go to the bathroom right here, right now, our wastewater will take a journey to the river to pair to that open channel, and once it hits the mouth of the open channel, it will drop underneath that concrete channel. So this is right where that happens. So it's at Mackland. There's an entrance off Mackland, but we're very, very close to this. So again, you can see we are at the downstream side of this tunnel south of Forest Park here. the water's coming through and rolling down through, and then that grate is where it drops down to go underneath the channel. So there's like a secret pipe under that whole channel that you see that carries all the way to the wastewater treatment plant. There's several versions of these, and then there's some redundancies built in. You can actually see a little bit in the picture where only the last 4 feet or so is open and dry, but you can see that that grate goes back farther before as it's sucking up the water to go underneath the channel. Does that make sense to everybody? So the construction of the river to pair the twin tubes and the open channel took place from 1924 to 1933. And then here is that opening again, larger out. So this is the same view of where we showed where they had a formal party inside those tubes. And this is considered MSD property. Don't tell MSD, but you can walk right up to it and look at it for yourself. It's pretty cool. Maybe throw parties. We'll see. I include this just to show how long we've been studying this. So we've come to realize that that wasn't a great solution, and we've known this for a lot of years already, that we need to have open channels that can accommodate larger flows because there's always going to be a big storm event. But how do we undo this 100-year history? It's hard. So this letter's from, this is a prefix of a letter. I don't know if I can see it here, it's highlighted. 1965 is when this was. I always find these letters really fun to discover in MSD's archives because Horner Schifrin is still a popular current engineering firm in town. I found another letter from the mid-1900s that was from a Schifrin, another one from a Horner. So these names have been around in our region for a while. And the other funny on this is that it's addressed to gentlemen at the front of a major report. And I'm smiling at people in the room and online because MSD only quit addressing letters to gentlemen in 2017 after a lot of pushing. So here's another much more recent project. Now we're getting back to Forest Park, that's near and dear where the meat of this is. So after we buried the whole river, then we realized, wait, this big park right here is our city's treasure, and any park should have natural waterways, and there's still low-lying areas that collect water. So Forest Park created a whole above-ground man-made system of lakes, and they were all independent. Every one of them had a freshwater source in. You can picture especially the one here at Jefferson because it's got the most prominent pipe just shooting water out all the time. And each one of these lakes had a freshwater source of water coming in, and then a foul water or wastewater source leaving the site. So it's a hard thing about St. Louis that our municipalities are not merged with our water and wastewater utilities. And since they're not merged, we don't get to capitalize on the efficiencies we could find through fresh water and wastewater. Yes?
When you say fresh water, is it coming from springs below ground, or is it coming from another source?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. From the St. Louis Water Division. So clean water is what I mean. Potable, drinkable. You could play in those lakes. Good question. So this was the first of the projects to try and say, okay, we have all these above ground human-made lakes, and we want to create an interconnected system. So this one's from 2010, where we started to create the west portion of those sites to get them interconnected and help restore a natural waterway. Now we're hitting the imaginary, or imagine our future portion of this. The Forest Park is close to home for me. I just live a mile and a half that way. I spend a lot of time recreating in the park. I think it really is our natural gem of our city. And what's really exciting is now that we're starting to realize that our systems all work better when we work better together. This was one of the favorite projects I worked on while I was at MSD because we took these freshwater sources and combined these lakes into an interconnected system, and it's currently under construction right now. So this is a spreadsheet that Gary, formerly of MSD, made, which shows the rainfall totals 1970 to 2018. I throw this in there because it's very data based and not pretty, and it goes over 100 years. But what it does show is a very clear trend line for our rainfall events, which is climate change. Our rain in this area is getting more intense and more frequent. I think you can all remember your water classes in third grade in your water cycle, which is that we have a constant amount of water in the globe, and yet it's hitting some areas more impactfully than others, and it's also hitting them in some areas more frequently than others. So that's the volume and then how often. So you can see that the spikes have gotten bigger here in the last 20 years, and again, this only stopped in 2018. We're blowing this chart out of the water even today. And then the pink line is just highlighting the trend line of the moving average. So I just highlighted one of these on this title down here just to show it is going up. This is a quick funny to show why you should always steal other people's work that have done it better. This is an exhibit I made at MSD to present to my board of why I thought where this project is located. And then I reached out to SWT Design, who made that so much prettier exhibit. So SWT Design is the design lead on this project, and they work with Forest Park Forever, which is an organization that's goal to make Forest Park our crown jewel today, tomorrow, and in the future. And they have such a great community aspect to everything they do. They recognize that this stuff matters, and that if we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this to do it again, we need to be doing the best we possibly can given the information we have right now. So the other thing worth noting about this Forest Park Waterways project, this is just the eastern portion. So before I showed you that we had done a little bit over there, the part on the west is already done, and it's a much more interconnected system. And now we're getting the tail end of how to do this. So again, today, all of these lakes were separate lakes with a water source from the City of St. Louis Water Division coming out on one end, and then on the other end, there'd be an outlet structure that overflows straight to our sewers. So we're unnecessarily treating millions of gallons of clean water every day just because of how these lakes are set up. This is just a list of why this project's awesome, but the really big take home I think is important is, as engineers and designers, I think we get stuck on the technical aspects and why this matters. And we miss the larger picture, which is that we need wildlife in our cities so that our cities can thrive. We need clean air in our cities so we can thrive. And it's all for us. You know, the water will go where the water is going to go with or without our involvement. But if we don't want it to flood our houses and we don't want it to get us sick, then we have to help guide it, and we have to do that thoughtfully. So that's what it looks like today. Again, we're just off this map right over here on the right. And remember before we talked about wet weather and dry weather systems. So when it rains, we need extra capacity throughout our system. We need extra big bowls. And this is a way that we allow our little bowl of Jefferson Lake to become a bigger bowl on purpose when it rains a lot. So right now, when it rains and Jefferson Lake floods, it floods Steinberg skating rink, it floods this Oxbow on the right, it floods this entire region, and it's not pretty. So now what they're doing is they dug out some of the lake and made it deeper in some spots, and then they have natural areas to the north that are going to be a little bit wetland area, and what that all does is it allows some resiliency to our systems that's built in. Along with that, the structures we added are elevated so that that whole lake can fill up several inches, which is a lot of water for that big of a lake. And then it can drain down slowly over time, which means less water is going to combined overflows to put shitty water in the Mississippi River. And they did the same on Bull Lake too. So they created these systems. So here it says existing elevation 466, max elevation 467.5. So that lake can get a foot and a half deeper when it rains. This one over here can get a foot deeper when it rains on the Jefferson Lake. That's a lot of storage and a lot of water that's not going to combined sewer overflows. And then when it's dry weather, what's so darn cool about this is instead of 3 separate freshwater sources, we're down to one constant one, which is the 7 pools at Bull Lake, and then 2 smaller ones at Jefferson Lake and Round Lake, and those are only as needed. So on the bottom, it shows lake circulation with a red arrow and a blue arrow. That's showing that 7 pools, that's where kids often play. There's a waterfalls right over here. They've redone all of that, and it's even cooler now. So the one freshwater source that'll be constantly on is that one. So that allows kids to play in that clean water. And then all of these lakes are interconnected. So fish can go throughout, plants can go throughout, wildlife can go throughout, and these lakes that were independent will operate as one system together now. And here's my slide on bringing it back to specifications. These are some of the challenges of this project were that the river to Pear, oh, you can't see it good. There's a tiny dashed line right in the middle. Right there. And if you're watching online, in the center of the Jefferson Lake, there's a very faint gray dotted line. And that is representing the river to Pear, which runs directly under those lakes. So again, those drainage channels were created to be an underground representation of where those rivers naturally were above ground. So we still have water above that. As part of this project, MSD had to go through some pretty extensive work to figure out how can we build it? How can we dig these lakes? How do we protect that 100-year-old asset? Gosh, if you damaged those twin tubes, that would be an insanely expensive proposition to even just accidentally knock a hole in the side of one. We'd be hurting in a big way. So MSD, along with the designers, spent a ton of time trying to figure out how can we build this and also keep our current sewers safe. So as part of the specifications, the designers were asked to do geotechnical reports and then also reports on the existing sewers. So here we have lake liner placement and removal. These lakes were lined so they wouldn't lose water below them. So they, I believe, had a clay liner that was added to create a surface where water can't soak through the lake bottom. And then the other one here is work in the river to Pear drainage works tube area. So that's how we say what heavy equipment can go where and how can we, again, protect our sewage below. This is, I don't know the total cost of this project, but I do know that MSD is contributing $1.2 million for that. And that is coming out of the budget for green stormwater infrastructure. And green stormwater infrastructure is a way to manage water closer to where it falls. So as part of this project, they are installing rain gardens, and then this whole project ultimately reduces combined sewer flows to the channel. Final thing is I want to know, a lot of people have been asking for a lot of time of when do you think the river to Pear will be restored to a naturalized channel. So I'm thinking especially, not forest parks are a harder problem, but especially south of us where it's a concrete channel that's being overflowed. I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. And this was a game I played at my going away party from MSD. And I just think it's a really good one right now too. I've been betting not in my lifetime. I think it might be the next civil engineering project, the next big one. We're a long ways off. But what's fun is I keep having senior design students at SLU and WashU that are looking at this going, why aren't we doing it now? We could do it now. Here's the answers to some of the questions that I put in there. And I just want to give a special thanks to CSI and the consideration you all have given me. I was also thinking through all the professors and bosses and professionals that have helped me in various ways along the way. So I This presentation's been really fun to create and then also deliver. And then finally, there's my contact information for the rest of that spreadsheet. I took some fun pictures for professional headshots on the left, and what I really got a kick out of this one is I think it's really important to have the right tool for the job, whether that be equipment or people or just asking the right resources for help. And what makes me smile for this is I finally bought myself a manhole lid picker, which my first job, I lifted probably 100 manhole lids over a couple of weeks. And then 3 weeks into that job, I learned there was a darn tool to do the job, and I didn't need to use my tire iron and a stick. And then the other half of this funny picture is that I sent this to a couple of professional colleagues, and both of them go, "Great, but why are you wearing?
Where's your boots?
Why are you wearing ballet slippers? You're still gonna squish your toes." And they're exactly right, which is why I came up there, because I think a little fun and humor is important in everything. We are at time, so let's go ahead and call it. And if you have questions, I'm here all afternoon. It's also lovely outside, and I was hoping if you like, we can take a walk over to look at some of the stuff together. And I know most of you need to get back to your jobs. So thank you very much.
Thank you.